Hello and welcome to Fire in the Belly. Today we have myself, Mighty Pete, and we're joined by Doug Gordon. Good afternoon, Doug.
Hey Pete, how are you doing?
Doing awesome. Listen, thanks very much for coming on. You're tried and tested. You're well used to broadcasting. So give us a bit of a background. Who are you? What are you doing? Where are you from?
Sure, thanks Pete. Thanks so much for having me on. I was born and bred in Ireland, moved over to England when I was 8, and then Belgium when I was 14, and then went to uni in England, and my parents moved over to America for 3 years. So I was tracing back and forth there, but then eventually they moved back to Ireland. But I was living in England, and I did engineering in university, and then I had an engineering job, but it was in a foundry, and I walked into the foundry in a suit, and I'd come home every day, Kate in soot. And my girlfriend at the time took one look at me and said, if you think you're coming anywhere near me, you can bugger right off. So at that point, I thought, well, maybe I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. I had a look around, and my father was working in the investment management industry, and I heard Fidelity were looking for someone on their customer broker line, which is like customer services line. So applied for a job, got a job there. I was working as a customer services rep, basically taking 120 calls a day for about a year and a half, and then got into sales support with Lazard up in London, then sales with Lazard, then sales management in HSBC Asset Management. Then the managing director of HSBC moved across to what was Morley, which is now Aviva Investors, and he poached me across as an investment sales manager. Then a guy I knew in the industry who was head of sales at Columbia Threadneedle pulled me across to Threadneedle, and I was there for 9 years. And during that time, I did an industry record. I joined Threadneedle in 2006, and there was about 50 million coming in the area that I was looking after. And then in 2012, I brought in 1.75 billion. So I was highly successful there. On the side, I played National League, Premier League hockey. I went to Loughborough University. I was in the first team there, playing alongside internationals and everything like that. And then basically in 2008, obviously markets hit, and it was really tough for everybody in the investment world, in the whole world. And by the end of 2008, we had to let go quite a lot of people. I'm quite empathic towards energy, so I could feel stress within the environment. And after a short while, I started getting very stressed myself. And even though I was top performing team, ended up getting stressed, and that stress led to ailment after ailment, doctor after doctor, and specialist after specialist. One thing I say, Pete, is in the investment management world, we used to have this saying in terms of how we do our investments. We use these top-down macroeconomic kind of viewpoint and this bottom-up stock-picking viewpoint and everything like that. I wish I hadn't said that. And my first thing I tell everybody is be very careful what comes out of this, because you can create with this very, very quickly. Because I had 2 of those cameras top-down and 2 of those cameras bottom-up. And I'd rather not have had either experience, I have to say. So anyway, then, so by the end of 2009, I needed 2 operations on my digestive tract, which went wrong. And then for the next 3 years, I was waking up sometimes maybe 10 times a night with abdominal pain, which was so strong. It was like I was being punched in the stomach. And it was absolute agony. And it was hard for me. It was hard for my ex-wife now. And it was probably a little bit due to do with that as well. We just had our second child as well in 2008, so that didn't help, obviously, with sleepless nights. Add that on to waking up 10 times a night as well. You can imagine how I felt most days. But I went in and obviously performed still in work. But then after 3 years in 2012, we're obviously in a contagious environment in terms of the virus. Well, I got a virus. I got the norovirus, which is like a stomach bomb. And it was pretty lethal. I mean, there's a couple of people who actually died from it. Well, quite a few people died from it back in the day. And I basically went through 10 days of chronic dehydration. And at the end of the 10 days, my electrolytes were so far down, I was having heart issues. And I rang NHS Direct, and NHS Direct straight away sent an ambulance down. And I was in the ambulance. ECG said heart blood pressure had doubled. Arrived into A&E. And of course, when you arrive into A&E, you're bricking yourself enough. And next minute you're seeing blood over there, screaming over there, and that makes it twice as bad. So, and then I'm looking at the blood pressure kit, and like I'm super fit, right? So my blood pressure is normally like 115 over 70, and looking at this thing at like 250 over something, and I'm like going, holy crap! So I'm kind of on the edge, thinking, shit, this is it. And they put me on one of those trays and they're wheeling me down to X-ray because they thought there was a blockage in the stomach. And on the way down to X-ray, it's like the whole world just stopped. And I was encapsulated in this amazing feeling of love, energy, and connection. Nothing like I'd ever had before. If you take your best orgasm and times it by about 20, you wouldn't even get close. And at that point, I just thought, wow, what's going on? And there was no man with a beard, but there was a living, conscious, loving energy that was surrounding within me. And nothing like I'd ever felt before. And there's no voice, but there was kind of like an inner knowing of a message being sent to me saying, look, you're going to be fine, but you need to change your life in some way or form. So I was like, okay. And then next minute, I'm waking up in X-ray and I'm suddenly really feeling a lot better. And within, I think, 4 or 5 hours, I was out of the hospital. And I had this kind of like spiritual experience, obviously. So I felt I had to give back in some way or form. So I heard about this. I wasn't really religious or anything like that. I went as a kid, obviously, but I wasn't really religious. And I heard of this course called the Alpha Course, which is like a church course, which actually Bear Grylls had done it. I talk about this a lot on stage. And actually, I met Bear Grylls in January, actually, over here. But I thought, you know what, if it's good enough for an ex-SAS guy, it's probably good enough for, you know, a puny hockey player. So at that point, I went and did this course, and I wasn't sure, to be honest with you, Pete, because I had this experience, and I arrived there, and obviously I believe in Jesus, but I said to them, I said, look, I truly believe that like religions are like rivers to the sea, and it doesn't matter which one you go down; they're all beautiful as long as you get to the sea, which is either God or universal energy or whatever you believe in. It doesn't matter what you call it. And I said that to them, and they said, well, look, maybe that's like Buddhism or something like that. Maybe you should consider something else. So I went away, and I wasn't sure, and I put it out to the universe and just said, look, give me a sign of whether I should go back or not. And no joke, Pete, what I'm going to tell you now is the God's honest truth. 2 days later, I'm running with my dog, because I used to run all the time, doing a 5K run. The dog's down the side. The dog suddenly cuts across me, and I went flying over the dog, landed down on my right-hand side, literally scraping my hand and my knee to shreds, like blood all over the place, freaking slapping the dog, you know, blood all over the dog and all this kind of stuff. I didn't hurt the dog, obviously, I was just cross. Went back home, and of course my ex-wife is looking at me going, Jade, what have you done? And anyway, we cleaned the cuts off and everything like that. And the next day, I wake up and I'm kind of a bit sore still, so I have a look down. I'm like, whoa, that's weird. And on my palm of my hand, I had 2 infinity signs or 2 8s. And then I had another infinity sign on my knee as well. So it's like 888. I said to my ex-wife, I said, well, thank God it's not 666 anyway. So anyway, obviously 888 was a lucky number. I went into work that day, and I was sitting next to a guy who's very, very religious in Threadneedle at the time. And I showed him the 2 on my palm of my hand, and he said, forget the bloomin' 8s, Doug. Have you seen what's in the middle? And I was like, what? No. And I looked down, and sure enough, in small writing, I've still got the photographs, in small writing, I had the letters of the cross, I-N-R-I. And it was a big I, big N, small r, small I. So it was like saying, Jesus of Nazareth here, not really king of the Jews, get back and do that course. So I went back and did the course, got very into the religious stuff initially, helped promote, because I was obviously a sales guy, helped promote the Alpha course. But then I read more, and I still went back to that analogy that I said earlier on about rivers to the sea. So at that point, I then thought, okay, well, I want to learn about other religions as well. So I started learning about Jadeism, Judaism, Buddhism, everything. And then gradually orientated more towards spirituality as a whole, rather than any individual religion. And I met the Dalai Lama, I met some amazing spiritual people over the time, and you just kind of get led. And obviously, I wanted to heal myself because of the ailments that I'd had in the past. So I started getting into healing, and then obviously because of the mind-body connection, I then got into life coaching, and then the life coaching led to business coaching and performance coaching because of the hockey. And I was always a hockey coach anyway as well. And then someone asked me to do a talk on stage, and then so I went on stage and did this talk, and it kind of went really well. And then someone asked me to do a radio show, and then another one, and then I did a global radio show. And then I thought, you know what, I could do a radio show. And I put my affirmations in place and my vision board in place. And within 1 month, I had a radio show. And then I was asked to do something called FIT CEO, which is like Ireland's first strategic wellness conference. And I had 4 CEOs there asked me to come into their business. And let's say the first one I did was in January 2018. And I was paid several thousand for going in for an hour talk. And I thought, you know what, if I can get paid this for just doing an hour talk, there's something in this. So I started doing it, and then started my radio show as well. My radio show went from 0 to, I had 136,000 people listen when I had Jamie Heaslip on, and about 120,000 when I had Stuart Lancaster on, and similar when I had Jack Canfield, who wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul, on as well. So it's just been brilliant. And then the business has gone through, like I now have set a business up which is called DNS Performance Optimization, which is coaching, consulting, corporate training, and also capital introductory service because of my investment background. So I'm currently selling, if anybody's interested, I'm currently selling Skellig's Chocolates business, which is a fantastic business, very profitable, and has been going for several years. And the guy's just looking to retire, that's all. So that's in a nutshell. I'm also a partner of a new business which is coming out, which is like a LinkedIn copy, or it's called Wazoo. And I've got a TV show coming out as well, which is going to be, it's on a new station that's going to be on a mix of Apple and Amazon Prime as well. I think that's about it.
It's not bad. You've done all right. Wow, that's awesome. That's quite some journey. Are you where you're supposed to be?
Well, am I where I'm supposed to be? The biggest thing for me is to try, my aim in life is try and help people find and connect with their true self, and in turn, find and connect with their true mission in life. And that has a lot to do with in terms of loving oneself and loving your true self, and then finding your true self and finding what your true mission is in life. So am I in my mission? Yes. Am I in the completely right state? No. Look, I've been through a lot. So 3.5 years ago, at the same time that I left the corporate world, I also went through a marriage split. Basically, after a near-death experience, we just kind of grew apart. We're still friends. She's living with a lovely guy and all that kind of stuff, and he's great with my children. It's all amicable, but it was tough. And then after that, then I had a girlfriend for 2 years who I was massively in love with. And unfortunately, when COVID happened, it's hard for women coming into a guy who's got baggage and a family and all that kind of stuff. And it just kind of hit toll, during COVID and all that kind of stuff. So am I perfect? Absolutely not. Am I trying to learn every day to be a better person every single day? 100%.
And you talked about connecting to your true self. I mean, are you aware of that? Are you connected?
Most of the time. We all sometimes slip up. It's all about balancing your energies, balancing your divine feminine, divine masculine energy. Divine feminine would be more kind of spiritual sense, and divine masculine would be more kind of grounded sense. A divine feminine would be more about love and kindness and everything like that. I would say 80% of the time I am. But as you know, Pete, yourself, when you've got 2 children and sometimes they misbehave, sometimes the emotional intelligence can sometimes slip. But 80% of the time, yeah, I'm pretty much there. My aim in life is just to help other people. My aim in life is to try and help businesses. So I work with big companies like Dell. So for example, this morning before we went on, I had an hour coaching online with the CEO of Okuko, which is one of the top businesses in the world in the optical lens industry, the tech side. And then I had a coaching session with a guy who's one of the executive directors at Dell. So I coached Dell as well. And then I was coaching a guy who is the owner of a business over in the west coast of Ireland. So yeah, I mean, that's the kind of stuff I do. I do a lot of seminars, like next week, for example, I'm doing a seminar to the Camelot Group, which is a group of entrepreneurs. So there's 150 of them there. I've got a 1 week after, and it's all about, so I do a lot of business stuff. I talk about, everything in terms of business, in terms of helping people with business plans, activity plans, client mapping, time management, everything like that. But I also then help people with, I've got a course coming out actually online, and it's something that I do with businesses a lot. It's called High Performance Success Without Stress. It's about optimizing your performance, but also keeping those stress levels down as well, and making sure you've got a good work-life balance, making sure that your health is at an optimal state as well. So I'm all about mind, body, and soul. Body obviously being nutrition, exercise, and proper rest. Mind obviously being about positive thinking and living in the now, and then soul all about being kind of either healing, prayer, or meditation. Meditation is something very key that I do, and also I'm also a master teacher of 4 modalities of healing as well.
That's quite some resume. Tell you, just before we get in, I'm really struck by your you've come across as heavily kinesthetic, very that seems to be, and I'm just wondering, is that tied to you mentioned yourself as being very empathic as well, is that connected? Is something you're aware of?
So yeah, Pete. So in terms of empathy and energy, it's interesting. I was out actually. I split up with my fiance in March. Said to me in July, she said, "Dad, you need to get back online and go dating," and because her mother met her guy on there, and I was like, okay. So she took me into Dublin to do some shopping to make sure I looked nice and smart for any dates I went on. And anyway, on the way home, Sarah said to me, she said, "Dad, your energy stuff that you talk about on stage, I think it's a load of rubbish." And I said, "Okay, Sarah, well, let me just prove to you that it works. Let's choose a friend of yours that you haven't seen during COVID, and we'll see if we can make it happen that you bump into her or hear from her even." So literally, I got her to say, "I am grateful that I am going to see Jane," let's call her. And she said, "I'm grateful I'm going to see Jane," 3 times. And then I said, "Close your eyes, and I want you to visualize Jane getting in touch with you." So she closed her eyes and she visualized. And I did the same because I know who Jane is. It's not, her name isn't really Jane. I'm just making it up for the podcast. Anyway, so I brought her home, brought her back to her mother's. And actually that night then my son was coming to stay with me. So I was waiting on my son bringing his bags down, all that kind of stuff. Sarah went inside and there was a letter for her, and she never gets a letter. And she picked the letter up and she opened the letter up, and sure enough, it was from Jane. And you can't make these things up. And I'm sure people out there, I'm sure the audience have had, circumstances where they've thought of someone or something like that, and then next minute, they're bumping into the person. I'm sure that has happened to you as well.
It is amazing, isn't it? Really, that sort of connection. But in terms of your tipping point, if you like, I mean, did that come from the sort of NDE, the near-death experience, or was it always before? Have you always sort of been aware of, spirituality and just manifestation, etc.?
Well, I have to say my mum has been a Reiki master for about 25 years, I think it is. And I'm 46 now, but when I was in my 20s, in fact, my early 20s, I never used to go off to Ibiza or anything like that. I always used to come back to Dublin and see my parents, my cousins, my friends, and everything like that. And my mum used to do practice on me in terms of Reiki. And I don't know what it was, Pete, but I tell you what, every time she gave me a Reiki treatment, I'd go out that night and I'd be lucky with some young lady. I think it must have been the aura was shining, or the energy was booming, or something like that. So I did believe in something. I believed in energy. I was drawn to the likes of Tony Robbins. I read Stephen Covey's book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, quite young, in my early 20s. I was listening. When I was a salesman working for HSBC Asset Management, selling to stockbrokers out in the road, I would be listening to tapes all the time in the car on Tony Robbins or someone like that, trying to learn. So I was into more of the kind of personal development side. In terms of the spirituality, well, as a kid, I did believe in God, and I always believed in God, and I did pray. A classic story, actually, which I will tell the audience, which is quite cool. When I was 8 years of age, I had this gorgeous girlfriend called Claire. And Claire and I used to play kiss chase all the time in school, and we were massively in love. It was lovely. And anyway, 8 and a half, my dad came up to me and said, "Right, we're moving to England." And I was like, "What? We're moving to England? What about Claire? Can she come with us?" And he was like, don't be silly. Anyway, so we moved over to England. I was praying and praying and praying, and that, that I would see Claire again. And we lived in England for 7 years, and eventually, when I was 14, then we moved across to Belgium, to Brussels, and I went to the British School of Brussels over there. And I had to go into like a pre-class class before I went into the actual school. And there, standing next to me, going into the same class at the same time, was this girl called Claire. So her parents had moved from Ireland to Birmingham, and then Birmingham to Belgium, and she happened to be going into the same class at the same time with me. So I kind of thought, wow, I've got something here I can create. And then it's funny, I mean, Pete, was I into spirituality? No, but I did believe in something. And I believe in energy. And when I was in the investment management world, I would always be, I'd be going into the meetings and I'd say, I'm going to have a fantastic meeting with this guy. I'm going to have a fantastic meeting with this guy. Or I'd be going into work. So I'd travel into work into the train station at London Bridge. And I'd be walking up to Liverpool Street Station and I'd be whispering to myself, I am the best salesman in the team. I am the best salesman in the team. And I would bring in more sales than anybody else based on that true belief. But also, I think by putting the word out there, the energy out there. I believe that everything is energy. And I think I always believe that, because if you think about it, this body that we're in is just like a vehicle. But the actual energy that's within us is what is in everything. I mean, even in a lump of lead, if you think about it, the atoms in a lump of lead, the protons, the neutrons, and the electrons inside those atoms are still moving around and vibrating. So everything vibrates. So if you get into the right vibration yourself, you'll attract positive things into your life. I found, now I was having ailment after ailment after ailment, and then eventually after my near-death experience, and I got into the healing stuff, and I got into a higher vibration. I mean, I was going to the doctor before 2013, I'd say maybe at least once a month, probably 2 or 3 times a month. Now, I think if I've gone since 2013, more than 3 times, I don't think I have. So, I'm in perfect health now. And I believe it's all down to vibration and how you think, how you act, and how you feel as well.
Talk to us about that sort of switch over from ill health essentially to great health. I mean, what happened? What changed?
I think my thoughts changed, and my behaviors changed, and my emotions changed. And what I say to anybody in life, whether it's an emotional situation where, I had a client recently who was abused by her uncle when she was a kid. I had another one, who just went through some very traumatic times. Her parents split up, and it was very traumatic for her. And I said, look, go back into the situation and understand what were the thoughts that you had at that particular time that made you feel bad? What were the behaviors or the habits that you did to make you feel bad or even worse? And what were the emotions that you were feeling at that point in time as well? And I think what I was having was stress in my point in time. And during that time, when your thoughts are, am I going to still have my job? Am I going to get this business in? Am I going to be able to support my family? Am I going to be able to, support my mortgage? Whatever it is, those thoughts going round in your head again and again and again and again, that causes disharmony within your brain and a disharmony within the body. And that causes what I would call dis-ease in the body, and in turn can cause disease. So what happened was, after the near-death experience, I think I kind of radio channeled just changed slightly as well. And then when I got into the healing as well and learned how to heal myself and learned about meditation and learned about mindfulness and stuff like that, my thoughts changed. I was always a very positive person, but I did worry. And I think what I realized is that where focus goes, energy flows. And if you focus on what you want rather than what you don't want, then you can change. And also, when I had that near-death experience, I realized that everything that happens to you in life is a gift, good and bad. Like, my fiance walked out in March, and I have done numerous life coaching sessions with someone else, with me, to understand, where I might have gone wrong in the situation. Now, I can blame the other person, and we all get that situation where we can blame the other person, but actually you're involved in the situation. And regardless of what happens, you have to take responsibility because you're in that situation, and you have to take responsibility for your actions as well as the other person. Even if someone is saying something to you negatively, I'm not saying that was the case at all, but even if there was, you have to be able to take responsibility for you. And I started taking responsibility more for my actions, my thoughts, my behaviors, and my emotions. And that's what changed in me. And that's why the vibrationary effect within became healthier, and I became healthier as well.
What does fire in the belly mean to you?
Fire in the belly means wake up in the morning with a mission that you have, and you wait, God damn, I'm ready to go. Right, let's get going. And you zoom out of bed. You make your bed. I always say to people, make your bed, because if you've done one task for the day, you'll do the rest of your tasks. And then I always say to people, write down gratitude or be grateful for everything you have, and just embrace each day as if it's your last, and have a real goal. Make sure you have, you don't have to write down goals all the time, but I do advise people to do that. But just know what your mission is in life. I always say that, like, your name is obviously Pete. If I ask you this, Pete, do you think your name is Pete? Do you believe your name is Pete? Or do you just know what your name is? And you know it, obviously, right? So know what you want in life. And regardless, because there will be, regardless of the ups and downs, just keep focusing on the fact that you know you're going to get it. And when you know you have a mission in life, and you know you can do it to help other people, then you'll just jump out of bed with energy every day. And I must admit, I sometimes work till 2 or 3 in the morning. I was working last night till about 2 o'clock in the morning, and I had my first coaching call at 8:30 in the morning. I was awake at 6:30, and I sprung out of bed, straight into the shower. Cold showers. I highly recommend cold showers. Even if you start off just for like 2 minutes, keep it cold. It stimulates the vagus nerves. It makes you feel fantastic. It grounds you. You feel great, and you can get up and you can approach the day with even more fire in your belly as well. So fire in the belly for me is all about having a goal in life or a mission in life that drives you out of that bed like a rocket every morning. And
it sounds like you practice that. You practice what you preach, right?
100%. I have a morning routine every morning, which I do. And it just depends on, I have a set one, but I don't do it always in the same order. It just depends what's going on. But yeah, I mean, I do the meditation. And the meditation in the morning tends to be visualization. So I know, like, my fiance's uncle, for example, is a highly successful man. He would be one of the most wealthy men in Portugal. And he wouldn't say he meditates, but he has a couch in his office, and he goes and lies down on the couch every day, and he visualizes early before work starts. He visualizes everything that he needs to achieve during the day. He visualizes the tasks and the steps towards those tasks to achieve those goals. And then he visualizes as well the success of him actually completing the tasks, both during that day, then longer term as well. And by doing that, then you've almost got the energetic intention that you're going to succeed before you've even started. And it just helps you along the way. So that's something that I always try and do. Sometimes I do it even in the shower, where I might stay in the shower a bit longer. I just close my eyes and visualize it. And actually, if you do it while you're having a cold shower, it's a great way of doing it. And actually, I always say when you're doing your affirmations, so I also do affirmations in the morning as well. So I'll look in the mirror and I'll say, I am feeling fantastic. I'm having a fantastic day. And it's amazing, actually. If you're ever in a corporate environment, which I used to be, and you go out on one of these corporate gigs, you're drinking a bit the night before, you get into work the next day and you say to one of your colleagues, how are you feeling? And they go, oh, Jesus, don't talk to me. Oh, flipping horrible. Oh, not bad. Oh, okay. And if you keep saying that you're not bad or you're okay only or whatever, you're going to stay that way. So I always say, fake it till you make it. Tell people you feel fantastic, and you'll trick your subconscious and you'll feel like that. So yeah, so I try and get up in the day and really self-motivate myself, because I have an acronym which I use on my radio show all the time. In terms of every single day, you need to make it happen. And that MAKER acronym is all about, right, mindset or motivation. And you got to motivate yourself first before you can motivate anybody else around you. Because it's like, when they say when you're on the airplane, you put your own mask on first before you look after anybody else. So get the oxygen going for yourself, and then so motivate yourself first. Then you can motivate yourself, your team, and even your clients to buy your products as well. Secondly, in my acronym of MAKE, it's A is for actions or activities. And that's all about knowing where you are and where you're looking to get to. So in terms of a business side of things, you might have, I help people with business plans, in terms of business mapping and everything like that. And so many people take a business plan, they write all their goals down, throw it in the cupboard, don't look at it until bonus time the next time. They take it out, they go, oh, did that, didn't do that, and it's a waste of time. I always say, put your target in for the year, put your target in for the quarter, the month, the week, and even the day. And then make sure that you have targets every single week to work towards that end goal as well. Secondly, activity mapping is something I always preach in terms of the activity side. In terms of activity mapping, make sure that you balance your day in the best possible way. And I often say to people, especially when I was leading sales teams, is do your main meeting of the day with the most important client at lunchtime, because everybody has to eat. And then you can optimize your time by speaking to them while they're relaxed as well. And then I try and tell people geographically to put 2 meetings either side so that you can then optimize your time. So you can do maybe some, admin in the morning, and then in the afternoon, maybe do your sales calls if you're in sales, or do your meetings, important meetings afterwards as well. Because you'll have been in 3 meetings with clients, talking about industry stuff, talking about product stuff in the flow. And when you're in that flow, then you can get on the calls and you'll be much more, you'll add much more value to the people that you're speaking to. Also, I used to find doing sales calls in the afternoon, particularly on a Thursday or Friday, people were a lot more receptive because they knew they were going home very soon as well. So they were in a much better mood, which is quite good. And then in terms of activity as well, client mapping, it's in terms of knowing your client so that you can actually make sure that you spend the right time with the right clients. You don't want to be wasting time with clients that can only give you a small amount of business. You want to try and make sure that you spend the right amount of time with the clients that give you a lot of business. And that's all about targeting and everything like that. And then K in the MAKE acronym is all about knowledge, or a knowing faith in yourself. And in terms of knowledge, it's all about, know your client, know your product, know your industry, and match your client's needs to your USPs. Or have a knowing faith in yourself. Because if you don't have that faith in yourself, who's going to have that in you? And then finally, it's energy and enthusiasm. And if you can optimize your energy, you can optimize your performance in life. And let's face it, energy is incredible. We talked about that earlier on. Let's face it, if you walk into a room and 2 people have just had an argument, you can feel the tension in the room, and you feel like turning around and walking straight back out. Or alternatively, if you had a really, really busy week at work and you're absolutely knackered, but you've got a party to go to at the end of the week, you don't feel like going, but you make a pact with yourself, I'll go, I'll leave at 9 o'clock and everything like that. Anyway, you arrive, there's joy, happiness, laughter, banter. Next minute you're dancing your socks off and you feel fantastic the next day. Well, what is that? That's obviously energy dissipating from one person to the next, both negative and then positive. So as I said, if you optimize your energy, you can optimize your performance in life. I live by that mantra.
That's awesome. I love that. It makes a lot of sense. I'm just cautious. Do people get you in general? Because I understand a lot of the analogies and the sort of the wording and flow and energy and etc. But that's not for everyone, right?
Well, you'd be surprised, Pete, because most of the people I deal with, if you ever look at my LinkedIn, you can see I've coached the likes of Stuart Lancaster, the Leinster coach. I was coaching him in sales and marketing stuff. I've been on stage with Joe Peachy. Joe is ranked the #1 sales trainer in the world, according to Global Gurus, ahead of Brian Tracy and Grant Cardone. And I've coached some of the biggest CEOs in Ireland, which you can, again, have a look. I've got 42 LinkedIn recommendations there, which people are putting their reputation on the line. And one of the biggest things that's said in a lot of those is energy. And if you wake up in the morning and you're full of energy, you're going to succeed much more easily in your tasks that you're trying to do. Whereas if you woke up in the morning, most people in the morning, their morning routines, they wake up and the snooze comes on, they're like, beep, snooze, beep, snooze, beep. And eventually they get to the side of the bed and they go, oh, Jesus, why do I do this? And they drag themselves out of bed, they drag themselves to the bathroom, they drag themselves to the train, they get on the train, they look at everybody else and go, why do we do this? And then they get in front of the computer and go, oh, why do I do this? Why do I do this? Why do I do this? So look, if you wake up in the morning with energy and zest in your belly and fire in your belly, then you're going to be, much more productive in what you do. You're going to think quicker, you're going to act quicker, and you're going to be quicker in what you do. And that energy will draw people in. And the reason why I was so successful in the investment management world, and the reason why I'm successful in the coaching world, is because I'm full of positive energy. Let's face it, I was coaching a CEO and I didn't have this energy, they'd be like, oh, boring, and obviously I'm talking, because we're in a podcast, quickly and enthusiastically to try and add value to you and your audience. Now, I'll be honest with you, when I'm with some of the CEOs, I don't say a word for 2 hours and I let them talk. It's about understanding. I'm very much, when I'm in the coaching environment, I've got 2 of these and 1 of these, and God gave me in that respect. So listen more and speak less. But obviously in this environment, you very kindly give me a bit of a chance to have verbal diarrhea.
So what else would you be doing on a Friday afternoon? I love it.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So talk to us about money, Doug. So you as a young fella.
What do you want to know about money?
No, Mini Doug, Mini you.
Oh, Mini Doug. So Mini Doug. So I had 2 loving parents. My father was an orphan. His dad died when he was 2. His mum died when he was 6. So he had a bit of a tough time, but he got into IT at the right time in the 70s. He was a highly successful man. He worked all over the world, and when he came back to Ireland, he headed up Fidelity Investments, and he was president here, reporting straight into Ned Johnson, who at the time was one of the richest men in the world. And a very successful man. And he pushed me. He's highly competitive, and he pushed me. Which was a good thing. He's a very kind man. Actually, you should get him on the podcast as well. He's an inspiration. At 60 something, he did the Atlantic in a small, tiny boat with 2 other men or 3 other men. And then he did it again at about 68 as well. And waves going up and down and all this kind of stuff. He was president of the Irish Yacht Club, Royal Irish Yacht Club. He was president of the Rotary. And he helped build a school in Zambia for orphan children and street kids. So he's a highly inspirational guy as well. Anyway, so having a guy like that really helped. And he drove me a lot. I'd come home and I might get 75% in an exam, and he'd go, well, I didn't get 80, and stuff like that. And he was also quite sporty as well. So he played hockey as well. And I was very into sport quite young. So I loved sport. I discovered I had a bit of a talent for it. At 12 or 13 years of age, I was the Southeast of England 100-meter champion. I was 3rd in the Southeast of England gymnastics championships. At 14 years of age, I started up my own football team, where I managed and captained it. And then I got into hockey as well. And then hockey, I went from not even playing till I was 14 to when I was 17, 18 in Belgium. I was playing National League for one of the top teams in the whole of the country. And then that's why I went to Loughborough, which is one of the #1 sports university, probably in Europe actually, and got into the first team there, playing hockey, and loved it. But then unfortunately, Pete, I discovered women and having fun, and that kind of knocked me a bit for a while, until I eventually started seeing girls, as in girlfriends, when I was in my late 20s, and then got back up into top level hockey again. So yeah, I was very sporty, very competitive. As young Mini Doug, was always very competitive, and played every sport under the sun, and loved it. And then when I was in university, I was sports secretary for the university. Used to work in the bars and everything, because it was very social. And also, I have to say, young Doug in Loughborough University, you got to remember, Pete, like those people like, do you remember Johnny Bell, who played for Ireland in rugby? So he was a friend of mine, kind of 6'3" or something, or 6'2", whatever, I don't know, built like a huge thing. And there was many people like that in Loughborough, and I'm only 5'8", and hockey player and all that kind of stuff. So in terms of competition for women, I had to try and learn how to use this and the charm and everything like that. So that's probably where I learned my sales skills in terms of, in terms of what helped me going forward in my job. And then obviously I went through my career, got married, was married with my ex-wife for 15 years, married for 13, had 2 beautiful children who are currently 14 and 12.
Who do you take after, your mother or your father then?
So I'm a mix of both. So dad, very much as a youngster, very much followed his footsteps. I played sport, played hockey, um, went into the financial world like him, worked my way up from customer services to, head of sales and marketing and board director. So very much following him in that footsteps until I had the near death experience, and then changed to be a bit more like following my mum's path in terms of Reiki and healing and everything like that. And then I went at one stage, I have to say, I went very, very spiritual like my mum, and I think my dad was a bit concerned. He's like, why are you leaving this kind of job that's one of the top jobs in Ireland in terms of sales and marketing, the financial world, to go and do this healing and coaching stuff? But then I gradually changed from just doing healing to much more kind of executive coaching. And much more on stage stuff, and then doing the radio shows as well. And obviously I've got this TV show coming out as well. And I love that kind of stuff. And because it gives you, I started doing one-to-one coaching and one-to-one healing and everything like that, which I still do a lot of. But then the on-stage stuff gives you the opportunity to teach and help and inspire more people in less time. So that's why I've gone down that. And I love being on stage. I have to say, I was talking with Jack Daly, who wrote Hyper Sales Growth recently. He was on my radio show. I'm good friends with him, actually. We chat mastermind quite a lot. And we both said we really miss the energy of being on stage. I had 8 gigs, mostly which I was paid for, leading up to the COVID close down. And, on stage, all that kind of stuff. And one of them was in front of 2,500 people. And then, boom, we're a closed shop for a while. But I'm sure it'll come back. I know I'll be back on stage soon. Can't wait. Really looking forward to get on and trying to help and inspire as many people as possible.
I was going to ask, what gets you in the flow state? And it sounds like being on stage seems to be one of them.
Yeah, well, meditation, mindfulness, gratitude. I always say to people, in terms of flow state, one of the best things you can do is I have my GEM, another acronym, where it's gratitude. And gratitude is really important because, let's face it, you and I have kids, right? And if you give your kid a present and they're not grateful, do you feel like giving them anything else? Of course not, right? So if you are not grateful for what you have now in this moment, however bad that is, if you're not grateful for what you have now, why would the universe, or why would your own subconscious self make you feel worthy enough to receive anything else? So that's why it's really important to be really grateful. I'm really grateful for chatting to you. I'm really grateful for the chance to chat to your audience. I'm really grateful for anybody out there that's listening. And I'm really grateful for everybody that's listened to this, having a wonderful rest of 2020 and a fantastic life going forward as well. And when you're grateful for what you have, and then you're grateful for the potential of what you can have as well, it opens you up to some amazing miracles and everything like that. So that's the first thing. And then E is for energy and exercise. Optimize your energy, you can optimize your performance in life. And then finally, and actually on that, before I go on to the next one, they've proven that school kids who do exercise in the morning are much better at the exams later on. It's been proven. And then finally, M is for meditation. And, I've had 150 people on my radio show like you, and I would say 99% of them say they meditate in some way or form. Either one, so they can visualize their goals and visualize the steps that they're doing to achieve those, or to reduce stress, to increase energy for life. And that's how you can get into the flow. If you just do those 3 things every day, and you eat consciously, think consciously, act consciously, really, really good. And actually, one more tip I would really give in terms of getting into the flow, it's a really good thing to do, is to write, to scribe. When you wake up in the morning, just write down whatever comes into your head. Because the reason is it kind of opens up your creative side of your brain. And there's a great book, which I have behind me here, called The Artist's Way. It's just here, actually. So The Artist's Way, it's a great book. I highly recommend it for people. And The Artist's Way, there's something called the morning pages. And that is exactly what I'm talking about. Try and do, 3 months of writing 3 pages every day of whatever. And write down your gratitude, everything you're grateful for, then write a little bit of scribing about what you want to achieve in life, your goals, whatever it might be. anything that comes out of your mind, even your problems, get your problems out there. It's a really good way to just create. And there's been a lot of actors and actresses and authors who started by doing this. And by doing this on a consistent basis, then they suddenly became much more creative, and they're able to create in their life incredibly. And I highly recommend this. I can't recommend it enough. And that's how you get into the flow.
Do you pray?
Yeah, all the time. And so prayers for me would be like positive affirmations said over and over and over again. So for example, in the Christian sense, the Lord's Prayer has been said over the last 2020 years, probably more times than any other prayer in the world, probably. Maybe not, but one of them anyway. So it's not necessarily just the words, it's also the energy and the intention behind the words as well. So when I say to people, when you pray, don't just pray with this, don't just pray with your mind, really get the energy going in your heart and say your prayers. So I say prayers every day. I've got a vision board up there and there'd be prayers. And I would say, I am grateful to God that I am in perfect health. I am grateful to God that I am inspiring people around the world and being paid for it, because you need to be quite specific about your prayers as well. So it's funny, actually, Pete. A lot of people say, oh, I am grateful to God that I am a best-selling author, and they become a best-selling author for 1 week, selling all their own book, or buying all their own books for their conference or something like that. And then after that, then that's it. So what I always say is I'm grateful that I'm a best-selling author, having sold 100 million copies of my books by the end of 2021, so that I can help and inspire as many people in the world as possible to achieve the goals that they want to achieve in life. So be very specific about your goals and put time on them as well. And in terms of prayers, say your prayers. In the Bible, it says, someone asked Jesus, how should we pray? And he says, pray in gratitude. And the other time Moses says to God, who art thou? And he says, I am that I am. So that's why I always try and pray in I am grateful statements as if it's already happened, if that makes sense.
No, it does. Absolutely. Because, whenever when you're talking to people saying, who are you? And they say, I am, then you know where you stand in many ways, It's
yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. In terms of then of how, you look at sort of near death and now, I mean, how do you compare and can you almost contrast the two, or?
Yeah, well, I've always been into sales. I've always been very positive. And, so I was always very positive like this. And I wouldn't have talked about spirituality before. I wouldn't have talked about energy before. It just was something that I didn't do. So, if I knew that I was meditating, if I knew that I was hovering my hands over people and healing them, I had some real miracle healings. Like I was on Grafton Street and in Dublin, and there was a guy that had been knocked out, and there was blood all over the place. I think he tried to interrupt two drunks having a fight, and he got whacked, went down, cracked his head open, and people were really worried. And I just went up. I said to my kids at the time, "Look, I've got to go and help this guy." I went and put my hands on his head, said a few prayers, sent him some energy, and he got up and walked off. Then I had a kid playing football against my son, and he was playing for Terranure against us, Clontarf, and he got his knee knocked around the side and came off crying, screaming. He was about 10 at the time, and his mum had called an ambulance, and I said, "Look, can I have a go?" Put my hands on him, a few prayers. He got up, went back on the pitch. He scored the winning goal for Terranure. My son came out. He goes, "Dad, why did you heal him?" I was like, "Well, I have to heal whoever." So yeah, I've had a lot of stuff like that, and I've also helped people with emotional problems as well. There was a girl who was like she was completely no confidence whatsoever. She was just not coming out, not meeting anybody, and I met her through a friend, and I ended up doing some work with her, some life coaching and a bit of healing and stuff like that. And she actually spoke at one of my gigs. I had like 100 people at one of my gigs, and she got up and she just said a few words, and the confidence change in her was phenomenal. So yeah, it's a really nice thing. So
you talk about energy. Do you feel it? Do you see it? Do you what way?
Yeah, very much so. For me, so I've been I've been doing a bit of dating, for example, and for me, it's all about energy. It's not about, for me, I want connection on the energetic level, on the spiritual, the emotional, the mental, and the physical. And when you have all of those and you find, your soulmate, or the one, or whatever it is, then it is. So yeah, for me, I very much feel energy, and energy is so important. And it's phenomenal. Like, I've been in meetings, and I can sense the energy in the room. I had this meeting once, so we ended up. Sorry, the sun's really shining in here.
I can see you getting blinded there.
I tell you, what I'm going to do? I'm going to hold this up so I don't lose you guys. But at the same time, I'm going to get up and I'm just going to close the blind here so that we don't have that in my face.
Perfect. There you go.
There we go. That's a bit better. So yeah. So I was in this meeting with a bunch of clients, and I was working at Threadneedle at the time, and I'd sold about 250 million units, or stocks basically, of our emerging market debt fund to a company. And but we lost the whole team because there had been a rogue trader. It was in the press, I'm not giving anything away. There was a rogue trader in like 2011. And then going into 2012, the team just got fed up and they left and went somewhere else. And there was nobody left. Anyway, we had one guy left, sorry. And he was a Brazilian guy, he could hardly speak English. But I trained him on presentation skills, which is something I do actually, train people both. Because obviously I've had the sales side, but now the media side, because I've been on stage with, ex-prime ministers, film stars, sports stars, and many others. And so I train people on both media and then on the sales skills as well in terms of presentation. Anyway, so I was training this guy up. We went into the meeting and he started talking, and I obviously top and tail. So I obviously give the intro and talk a bit as the sales director, and then he goes into the actual nuts and bolts of how he runs the funds and all that kind of stuff. And his language skills weren't good. And what I did then, I could feel the energy of the guys that wasn't good. So what I did then is I just thought, okay, I need to hold the space and just send positive energy as much as possible to everybody in that space. And you can do that through your heart. You just send positive energy to them as much as possible, positive vibes, just almost like, I know this sounds a bit weird, but almost like thinking like, I love you kind of thing, kind of that kind of, you just send the positive energy to people. And suddenly the fund manager just suddenly sparked up talking about his trades, and he became much more enthusiastic. And then I could see the change in the energy of all three of the analysts. They suddenly went, okay, there's a bit of, because the energy changed, and the energy between them all interacted in a positive way. Anyway, and we not only kept the business, they added another 230 million over the next year. And Pete, you get this. So I was concerned they were going to take the money away. So I also introduced them to another fund manager, our European equity fund manager, just in case so they could move the money internally rather than taking it away, so they'd save on capital gains tax. And they not only kept the fund, but they also bought into the other fund. So they gave us over 300 million into the other fund as well. So with a potential risk of like 230 million or something like that, whatever it was, we ended up getting, I think by the end of the year, they went up to like 830 million with us or something like that. So it was a fantastic turnaround. And that was very much down to energy in that way. So yeah, I do feel energy. I often will go in and see a client one-to-one as well, and I can sense their energy and sense how they feel. And when they're talking about certain things, I intuitively will know whether they're passionate about it, whether it makes them feel good, whether it's going to work for them or whether it's not going to work for them. And I can utilize that to help them in best possible ways through intuitive thinking, intuitive understanding of how they actually feel, if that makes sense.
Mm. No, it does, and it's awesome to come across that, I suppose, in many ways. What are you most proud of?
Well, my two children would be what I'm most proud of in terms of life. What am I most proud of? Well, look, if we went back to near-death experience, or even at the end of 2012, I would have said probably, turning a business from 50 million to 1.75 billion in 6 years per annum, that is. I would have been proud of that. I was very proud of playing hockey at a high level with, Jason Lee, who was the coach of the British Olympic team, the UK Olympic team, or English Olympic team, sorry. in 2012, I played alongside him. He was centre forward, I was right wing in Loughborough. So I'm very proud of that. In sport, in business, I'm proud of my business over the last 2 years. Actually, I had a great, I'll tell you a great story. So I currently coach SVP and VP level at Dell Technologies. And it was just before COVID, it was about early Feb. I saw that the president of Dell over here was promoted. And I sent him a message saying, congrats on your promotion. I wish you every success. And he came back to me on LinkedIn saying, thanks so much, Doug, really appreciate that. And I went back to him and I said, let's just call him John because I don't want to give away his name. But I said, John, look, if you're interested, I'd love to come in and have a coffee with you sometime. I'd even come in and do a talk for you guys. Here's one I did earlier. I recently spoke at the National Workplace Wellbeing Conference. I talked about making sure you get your teams aligned, working together and having a mission in life, a mission in your job. And anyway, he came back and said, actually, Doug, I'd like that. And he CC'd on LinkedIn his secretary. And within 2 weeks, I was going in to see them. And I was proud about, what I was proud about in this situation was the process that I used. And it'll help people out there, I hope, in terms of sales. And what I did was, I did a lot of research, and research is key when you're going to see someone. Make sure you do the work beforehand because it makes it so much easier. Like I did loads of research. So I went on his Twitter, I went on his Instagram, I went on his LinkedIn, and I had a look and got a good profile of what he was like. So I saw that, for example, that he was the president of the American Chamber of Commerce. And I've spoken at the European Chamber of Commerce, the Junior Chamber of Commerce, the Dublin Chamber of Commerce, and the Tanzanian Chamber of Commerce, doing talks to them. Then on top of that, I also saw that he was, I think he was like one of the committee members or the president, I can't remember, of the Special Olympics Committee for Ireland. So, and I'm an ambassador for the Wooden Spoon, which helps mentally and physically disabled children. And it's through the Six Nations Rugby. And I used to help that a lot. I used to do events through my company actually, but to help and give the money to the charity. So obviously there's a link there as well. And then he was a big Munster fan. I'm a big Leinster fan. Obviously on my radio show, I've interviewed quite a few of the Leinster players. I've met quite a few of the Leinster players and all that kind of stuff. And then he's got 2 children. I got 2 children. Then I saw online he'd been over to China, which was in February. So obviously, COVID was actually up and running over there. And then I saw that he'd been in Morocco as well. And he did a speech online, and he was very good. He did some really good presentations there and all that. So I had a good idea about him and what he was interested in, everything like that. So beforehand, so I arrived in, went into their offices, and there was a picture of him up on the wall with his jacket done up like this. And it was quite a hot day, so I actually kind of like went, okay, matching him. Buttons up done up as well, kind of thing, just to be smart and make sure that I was in the same kind of format as him. And then he came out, and I actually had noticed that one, they didn't have a mission statement behind the reception, and 2, the energy coming out in and out of the door was fantastic. So I said to him, I almost gave his name as well. I said, John, it was an absolute fantastic to meet you. I see the energy that's coming out of the door here is just fabulous. Obviously, you've created a really good aura within the company, so fair play to him. And he liked that, obviously. And then I said, look, you haven't got a mission statement, though, behind reception. I said, I'm surprised. I was talking about this last week, that, when you go to Microsoft, they have their mission statement. So when they kind of walk into work, they look up and they go, wow, that's why I'm here. That's why I'm here. Yes. And he kind of thought, yeah, that's a really good idea. Went into the coffee shop, and, we're in the coffee shop. And I said to him, I said, John, I see that you are, the Chamber of Commerce. I used to do I've done speeches at all these different Chamber of Commerce as well. If you're ever interested, I'd be happy to come in and do a speech for you guys to add value. Oh, thanks, Doug. Thanks, Doug. And then we went on, and I said to him, oh, by the way, I see you're in the Special Olympics Committee. I'm in the Wooden Spoon kind of thing. Oh, no, that's very interesting, Doug. Connection again. Then I talked a little bit more to him. I said, actually, I see you're a Munster fan. I'm a big Leinster fan, but I know Frankie Sheen, who used to play for Munster very well because he does the Pendulum Summit. and I know a lot of the speakers because they've been on my radio show. I've actually had Norma, Frankie's wife, on my radio show as well. Oh, I know Frankie as well. Ooh, great. And then I said to him, I said, look, I also saw you were in China. Well, what happened there? You know, did you have to quarantine when you got back? He said, yeah, 2 weeks. And I said, well, I saw you were in Morocco and you had a fantastic speech over there. I said, you know what? I've been in the speaking world for quite some time. If I was your agent, I reckon I could get you 30 grand every time you spoke with your tenure here at Dell. And at that point, he was like, let's go upstairs to my office. And we were obviously going to sit in the coffee shop, but he said, let's go up to my office. So we went up, and on the way up, I said, look, I see you got 2 kids. I've got 2 kids. You know, again, creating connection, creating commonality, and creating a good rapport, showing that I'd done my research. And that's what you need to do in business, and that's what you need to do in sales, and even in life, you know, whatever it is. Even if you're meeting someone on a date, if you can, try and understand, ask them the questions as much as possible. So we got up to his office, we sat down, and after a bit more of small talk, I eventually said to him, I said, look, is it okay if I tell you a little bit about my business? And what I was doing there, Pete, is I was asking for permission to be able to sell rather than just going into it. And he said, of course, Doug, what do you think you're here for? So I said, look, I don't want to tell you about what I do. I'd rather get people who I've worked with tell you what I do and give you an example. So I said, look, one of the people I coach is the CEO of Okaco. He's a super guy. He's built this business from scratch. He's built it up over the last 20 years. And it's one of the biggest optical lens software support companies in the world. And so this guy had done a really nice LinkedIn recommendation for me. So I showed it to him, and I said, look, what I've done from him is when I went in there, you know, he was, you know, he wanted to increase sales. So we did some work on the sales team and the sales commission vote process, just rearranging how the process in terms of sales worked. And we also did some affirmations, we did some goal settings, and within a very short space of time, he got 2 $50 million deals coming in that he hadn't had before. And then he also got from a client, which I can't tell you who, but a UK-based client that he'd been trying to get for ages. He got like a £6 million deal straight in as well. So that was that on that front. He also, you know, being such a busy man in terms of working, his relationship with his wife and his eldest son wasn't great. So I just put some ideas in terms of work-life balance. With his son, I just said, give him a hug every day, you know. And very rapidly, he changed that. Within a few months, he was having a great relationship with his wife and a great relationship with his eldest son. Then there was a few management issues in terms of, you know, typical stuff, really. So I just helped him with that in terms of meeting with the people and helping him in terms of advice and everything like that. And that improved as well. And then he also needed to, you know, just get a bit fitter and lose a bit of weight. So again, because of my hockey background and everything, I helped him there as well. So I told this whole thing to the guy as one example of what I did with one person. And he said, right, Doug, you don't need to tell me anymore. I'm going to take you forward for coaching with so-and-so in HR, consulting with so-and-so, corporate training with so-and-so, and keynotes with someone else. And that was it. So I didn't say anything more. I shook his hand, was so grateful for his time, walked out the door, got in the car, drove about 5 minutes away to the first garage I could find, pulled in, got the phone out, and typed him a thing saying, John, so nice to meet you. Thank you so much for your time. I'm so grateful considering how busy you are. As discussed, I can provide you services for corporate training, coaching, consulting, and keynotes. And in fact, I'd be delighted to have you on my radio show sometimes because you were a true inspiration as well in terms of the business world. And then this guy who's looking after 170 something countries around the world, and God knows how many, I think it's like something like over 130,000 people, came back to me within 10 minutes saying, CCing in all the people within the HR. Doug, I'd like you to meet Sinead. She'll take you forward for this. Doug, I'd like you to meet Neej. She'll take you forward for that. And Doug, I'd like you to meet so-and-so for this. And it was done because of just purely thinking about the other person and asking the right questions rather than telling them how great I was. I did not sell or tell how good I was once in that sale. All I did was find out all about him, match our commonalities together, and then use another person to sell for me. And that is the key to selling and the key to business growth. I was quite proud of that one. And now I'm coaching Dell, and you know, I've got several clients in Dell, and it's been fantastic. And through that, I've managed to get other people. In fact, now I'm coaching an NFL pro footballer. I've got solicitors. I've got business people. I was coaching an engineering firm, and a load of other tech firms and financial stuff as well. So yeah, so that's probably one of the proudest moments in my job. I'm quite proud, obviously, of the radio show as well. I mean, you know, I just thought I might get like friends and family coming on, you know, and ended up getting people, as I said, like Jamie Heaslip, Stuart Lancaster. I had Gary McGann, the chairman of Paddy Power Betfair, used to be the CEO of Aer Lingus and CEO of Smurfits. And then obviously I had the Secret film people. I had Jack Canfield, who wrote Chicken Soup Soul. I think he sold about 500 million copies of that. I had Dr. John DeMartini, who was on the Secret film and the Secret book. And then I had Lisa Nichols as well. And these people have become friends of mine now as well. So, so now, yeah, I've got other people, really cool people. So Lisa's coming back on. I've got Dr. Joe Dispenza. We're just arranging the last bit in terms of when he's going to come back on. He's obviously world famous. And Jay Shetty as well. Jay Shetty's a fantastic guy. He's just written a book as well. And yeah, so, you know, it's just incredible to be able to have a vision and then see that vision come into act. And that's what I'm proud of.
That's awesome. I mean, well done you. There's so much there. And I mean, you said this has almost taken up speed in the last couple of years, really, for you, and it's blown up, really. I mean, is that not intentional, but is it where it's supposed to be? And do you think, is that going to continue on forward?
Yeah, I think so. I think, like, if I have a look at the way things panned out, so 2012 was the near-death experience. I moved back to Ireland because my father-in-law, or ex-father-in-law now, he's still alive, but obviously ex because I split up on my own. He had cancer and kidney failure, and I felt, you know what, if I was in my 80s, you know, I'd be delighted if my family came back and looked after me, kind of thing. So we did, and actually he had talking of healing and stuff like that earlier. He had 19% kidney function at the age of 82 or 83, and was told it would never go up; it would only go one way. And I actually gave him a healing, and his kidney function went up to 23%, and he's still alive and well today. So in terms of, is it the right timing and is it meant to be? I think so. I had told my marriage, you know, because we generally just went our separate ways after the near-death experience, because I became a lot more spiritual and changed, I think, a bit as well. So the marriage gradually went like that. And then we split up in September 2017, and it was 2 months later that then I left Davy, the place where I was, to start doing what I'm doing now. And you know, I think coming back here, obviously I'd done well in my career over in England, so I didn't have a mortgage on the house or anything like that. So obviously that allowed us to split the assets and be very comfortable to be able to go our separate ways. And so that was kind of divine timing. And then, you know, and then I actually, funny enough, I wouldn't have met my my fiance if it wasn't for you know, divine timing as well, because, you know, she was an entrepreneur, and if I'd been working at Davy, I never would have met her, basically. So I'm very grateful for that, and I'm very grateful for the time I spent with her. And there was so much learnings there, and she's a wonderful person as well. So look, everything is divine timing, and you learn from everything, every single experience in every single way. I'm not saying that the last 2 years has been a straight line at all. There's been lots of ups and downs. There's been lots of, you know, heartache, lots of work. But I've enjoyed every single moment of it. And I've learned so much from the people that I've worked with, and I'm blessed and so grateful for every single person that has come on my radio show, every single person that's asked me to help coach them. And I'm so grateful for the companies that continue to ask me to come in with them every single week. It's just a blessing to be able to serve and help and add value to other people in some way or form. And you've got to remember, Pete. So I'm a trained fund manager, and I have the IMC, which is Investment Management Certificate, the IAC, the Investment Advice Certificate. So while at Threadneedle, we could go into any individual meeting with some of the top CEOs in the UK or even in the world who'd come in and they want us to buy into their company in terms of stocks and shares. So I got to sit in analyst meetings, listen to some of the top business people in the world saying what works and what doesn't work within business. And it was phenomenal. I learned so much there. And then I was dealing on a B2B level to with the CIO and Chief Investment Officer of JP Morgan and people like that, top level people, CEOs of big companies and all this kind of stuff. So again, you learn from them as well. And having lived in so many different countries as well, I learned from that. And you can utilize what you learn to teach other people. And with the radio show, as I said, I've had, multi-millionaires, CEOs, chairmen, top sports people, phenomenal people coming on. And I learned from them what works and what doesn't work in their businesses and their life to be successful. And I utilize everything I've learned to help other people. And like yourself, Pete, because obviously you're into the same kind of stuff, I would read or listen to at least 2 or 3 books every week to try and learn more and more and more. And everything that I learn, I utilize to help my clients as much as possible.
I was just going to ask you, are you naturally a reader, listener? What's your preference for learning?
So I listen to books at either 1.5 or 2 times speed, and I go running and I go walking. I live literally 5 minutes from the sea here, and then so I go up the seafront. I've got Howth, which is one of the most beautiful places in Dublin, and I was walking up there actually at lunchtime just before I met you. I utilize the audiobooks all the time, and that way you can walk and exercise and get the information in, but keeping your body fit and healthy as well at the same time. So I was doing that earlier on today before I saw you. Yeah.
Oh, awesome. In terms then with, upper management, execs, CEOs, etc., in the coaching style, what do you tend to find? Is there a commonality between what people are seeking or wanting or where they're at? I mean, from a coaching perspective, what are you observing?
Yeah, I mean, there's very different things that I deal with, and it depends on the individual person. So what would I deal with? Conflict management, employee engagement, how to create a better team environment, how to improve your presentation skills, your sales skills, your communication skills, but also in terms of how to create the optimize your performance while keeping the stress levels down as much as possible. So I talk a lot about wellness as well. So it's really tailored. My coaching is very much tailored to the person and what they're looking for. And now, I mean, God, in the last few years, I probably coached over 1,000 people in different ways or forms. Some, for 2.5 years during that time or more. Like the guys from Okiko who I was coaching this morning is a phenomenal guy. I mean, like incredibly successful, and very well liked across the whole of Dublin, very well known. And he would refer people to me all the time, and he's a super guy. And then there's other people that I've only had 2 sessions with, and that's all they needed. But some people use me for more like a business advisor rather than just a coach, if that makes sense. Because I am, going into so many different companies and meeting so many different people. There's always an angle that I can help with, and also having the reported into CEOs directly in the past. And also because I'm a non-executive director of a couple of companies as well, that kind of helps in terms of learning and understanding of what works and what's happening in the environment and everything like that as well. So you can use, again, what you've learned to help them. So it really depends on the person, Pete. It can be so many different things. It really can.
I mean, you come across as the busiest man in Ireland, and there's so much going on there, and there's so much. I mean, are you religious about your schedule and how you go about things, or how do you structure that much?
Yeah, time management is key. But I have it pretty much down to a T now. I mean, like the radio show that I do it's only a half-hour radio show. I do it on Zoom now, obviously, which is like the same as you. So I don't have to go anywhere. The prep work, it takes me maybe, I don't know, an hour to get the intro ready and just do the research on the person, make sure I understand a little bit about their book or whatever they're wanting to promote as well. Maybe sometimes a little bit more, but it depends. So that's not really that time consuming. The coaching just happens. At the end of the day, when it was happening, obviously the biggest time consumption is getting to different gigs, especially because I did gigs over, like I was on stage with Lisa Nichols over in Florida. I was over in London doing the Venture Capital Investment Summit. I was in London doing the London Investment Summit. And then I was in Luxembourg doing another international summit as well. So it's that kind of thing, that it's the time there, but at the same time, while you're traveling, you can be learning, coaching, doing whatever. So a lot of the stuff that I do, I could be doing from anywhere in the world. If I was in America now, if I had a 10 o'clock, I'd just get up at 5 o'clock in the morning if I'm on the East Coast and do the coaching. I still have American clients now, so quite often, sometimes I'll be, coaching at 8 o'clock in the evening. So yeah, time is fine. Look, at the end of the day, at the moment, I am single, so that makes it a little bit easier. But who knows? But even when I was living with my fiance, it was fine. She was an entrepreneur as well. We were very respectful for each other's time. And, it's a decent sized house, so there's different rooms we can sit in and do our own stuff. So, look, the biggest thing I say to people is they get up in the morning and they get out of bed and they rush into work, and it's rush. The best thing to do is to start off the day with a meditation, visualizing all the tasks you've got to do, and then write them down and then tick them off one by one. And if you do that, you don't tend to, and also I have to say, I've got 2 marketing people working for me. I've got 2 virtual assistants working for me. I've obviously outsourced my accountant. I've got a bookkeeper, and I've got some salespeople. So, I've got everything outsourced. So, really, I'm just kind of managing it, if that makes sense. And it makes it much easier in that respect as well.
No, absolutely. Yeah. Well, that's what it's all about, really, is sort of managing and multitasking as such. What's a guilty pleasure for you?
A guilty pleasure. Well, I don't know if it's guilty pleasure. I don't drink much, and I wouldn't be, I wouldn't be a big. I don't eat many, naughty things, shall we say. I'm very healthy. So I have a stable diet generally of fish, vegetables, and rice. And then for breakfast, generally, whatever. But in terms of what I enjoy doing outside of work, I'm a member of the tennis club just nearby, squash club. I will run. So I went for a run at lunchtime before we did this, running up on Howth Head. It was beautiful, next to the sea. It was just gorgeous. I enjoy swimming in the sea. I love travel. So I went to India a couple of years ago for 6 weeks. I went to America then for a few weeks. At one stage, I went for America back in 2015 when I had some time between jobs. I went over and took family actually at the time, because I was still with my family, and we did 3,500 miles around California, Utah, Arizona, and Nevada, and visited basically everywhere in California, Vegas, Grand Canyon. So I love all that kind of stuff. I love meeting people, but no guilty pleasures, put it that way. Pleasures, yes, but no guilty pleasures.
It's always interesting. So a lot of people don't like the word guilty. It's interesting, but for pleasure and leisure, it sounds like you enjoy just getting out and being active by the sounds of it.
Yeah, very much so. Look, I've always been into sport, and I believe in. It's like when you see those rivers where the water gets caught in the side, it goes stagnant. And so let's face it, we're made of 70% water. Or 65, 70% water, depending whether you're male or female. And if you keep that flow going, you'll feel better in yourself as well. So very much into anything that's active that you can possibly imagine. And I do find that if I haven't been out there being active, I feel a bit stale. And actually, while we're on that, I know this is I'm going sidetracking here, but this might add value to people, so that's why I'm going to tell. There's a guy called Dr. Emoto. Have you heard of him?
No.
So Dr. Emoto used to do experiments with water, and he used to take, say, 3 containers of water. It's EMOTO. I can see you writing it down there. He was a Japanese professor, and he used to get, let's just say, 3 containers of water, and you can look them up on the internet, and he shows you the results. And you have one here, one here, one here. Same water, same type of containers, and he would write on the outside of one container, gratefulness. The other one, he write outside love, and the other one, he write outside hate. And then he gave one to one set of students, one to another, and one to another. And he got them in separate rooms to say, I love you, I love you, I love you to the water. I'm so grateful, I'm so grateful, so grateful to the other water, and then hate, hate, hate to the other one. And then he took the water after about 10 minutes of them doing this consistently, and he put it in a freezer, left it in the freezer overnight. It obviously froze, then he took it out, and he looked at the molecules of the water on one of the most powerful microscopes you can possibly imagine. And it was incredible, Pete. Like the one with the gratitude and the love, they're like diamond-like shapes. Have a look online, it shows this. Diamond-like shapes of the molecules, like connected together, right? One in symmetry, beautiful. The hate one was all over the place. There was no symmetry, it was just all over the place. So if you think about this, if you want to keep the flow of energy going through you in a positive way, make sure you're being careful about what you say, who you hang around with, and what you think. So, be very careful about that. I mean, energy can affect energy. Energy can affect molecules, and that's proof of it through what he did in that sense. So be very careful of that.
I love that example. It's unbelievable power, and I just think we barely even know a fraction of what we're capable of and what's going on. Really,
yeah,
it's crazy. Who can you serve best?
Who can I serve best? Well, look, I can serve people in terms of increasing performance. I mean, my trademark talk that I do online and over at speeches, there's 2. There's one is high performance success without stress. And that's helping teams working together in the best possible way to perform in the best possible way. I can also help people get into what you called earlier on, the flow. And McKinsey did a study showing that if you're in the flow, you are 500% more productive. I think Forbes did they did a survey, and Forbes showed that happier people are 20% more productive. Happier sales staff were 37% more productive. And get this, so they looked at the Fortune 100 companies, the top 100 Fortune 100 companies between, I think it was something like 97 and 2004. Don't quote the dates, people. They did something like 14% annualized stock market returns, those top 100 companies. And then the average of the companies outside of that was something like 6%. So the happiness factor, the flow factor can affect the companies, the world, and the economy so much so that came into act. And actually, on top of that, there's a great thing which I saw was, I'm obviously from the stock market, so it was phenomenal. Now I saw that if you have a look at the stock market returns, say, just use the FTSE 100, for example. I think up to 2017, I saw this graph, and I think it was something like, I think it was 80% of the time, or 85% of the time, the stock market went up in the last 2 weeks of the year, every single time, other than maybe 2 or something like that. And what that shows is because obviously the last 2 weeks of the year, collectively, we're all happy because it's Christmas time. And someone said, oh no, that might be an accounting issue. But actually, if you look at the stock markets, not just in England, but in the world, let's take the US, for example, and you look at the stock market the day before Thanksgiving, the day before Independence Day, the day before Easter, the stock market 80% of the time goes up because people are happy. So what can I help people do? I can help them get into a state of flow, a state of happiness, and make sure they have the highest possible performance for the lowest possible risk to their health. And the other thing I can do is, obviously, as I said before, I took an area in the investment management world, which is one of the most competitive areas in terms of sales, and I took it from 50 million to 1.75 billion per annum in 6 years. So I can help you in sales, I can help you in marketing, I help you in presentation skills, I can help you in PR and everything like that, but I can also help you get into the best possible states that you can perform as a team and get the people, the individuals performing in the best possible way for you and your business and for you and your life as well. And my aim, as I said earlier, is to help people find and connect with the true self within so they can find their true mission in life and achieve that in this lifetime.
Wow, that's super powerful. I'm curious about flow. How would you describe flow to somebody maybe that's not sort of used to the term and the state as such?
Flow is when you're totally focused. It's when you have a goal, you have a chore to do, a task to do, and you're totally focused on it. I mean, this when you're living in the moment, you're living in the now. I mean, I'm sure you've been in meetings and you looked around the room. The people are, you know, they're disengaged. They might be on their phone or whatever it is, and they might be worrying about what their wife said earlier on, or worrying about picking up their children later on. Flow is when you're in the moment and you're absolutely focused on what you're doing in the now, so that you don't have any distraction. Because if you think about it, I mean, how many times do we look back to say that that dog chasing that fox, you know, he's got to be straight focused on the goal and not be distracted by the rabbit over there, or the rabbit over there, or the smell over there. It's just got to be laser focused on what you're doing. And when you're in the flow, you know exactly what you want to do and you achieve it through the best possible time, you know, in the best possible way.
Oh, I love it. I mean, the flow state is something incredibly powerful. As a guide, I mean, what's a sort of good books or people to follow? You know, what would you recommend for people to
Yeah.
read?
So in books, I love a guy called Wayne Dyer. I don't know if you've heard of him. So Wayne Dyer wrote some amazing books. He wrote the Erroneous Zones, which was one of his first books, sold about 40 million copies. It's a psychological book. The Power of Intention he wrote, which is fantastic as well. Highly recommend that. Wishes Fulfilled he wrote, which I highly recommend that as well. Then Napoleon Hill, everybody knows this one, is Think and Grow Rich. But what people don't know, he also wrote a book called The Laws of Success. And I highly recommend that book as well. It's fantastic. And then another book that I absolutely love, which was actually written before Napoleon Hill's book, back in 1918 or something like that. And she's brilliant. Florence Scovel Shinn wrote the book, The Game of Life and How to Play It. I highly recommend that. Other books that I recommend, well, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. I've actually interviewed his son, Stephen Covey Jr. And the other book that I love is Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People as well, which would be fantastic. So they would be some of them, that my most recommended books to people. Some of them I've read loads of times. Another book that I love was written by a guy called Frank Bettger, and it's How I Raised Myself from Failure to Success in Selling. He wrote the book in about 1918 or 1920 or something like that, but I must have read it about 5 times. It's just brilliant. It's a really good book, really easy to read, a lot of fun, and it's old-fashioned selling, but it's old-fashioned relationships, because you know, life is all about relationships and connection with other people. And, you know, the first thing you need to have is the connection and the relationship with your own self, so that you can get that self-love. Then you have the relationships, the connections with the loved ones that you have in your life, your friends, your family, your son, your daughter, whatever. And then you have the relationship connections with your clients, your colleagues, and everything like that. And if you can get that all going in the correct way, in the correct manner in your lifetime, you'll be pretty happy, I'd say.
What do you desire?
What do I desire? I desire to try and, in this lifetime, leave a legacy. And that legacy will be to try and touch as many people's hearts as I possibly can on this planet. I say to people, when people, I deal with quite a lot of people with grief, and they say that they lost someone. And I often say to them, I say, look, it is hard that the other person has passed on to their next life. But think about the energy that they left behind, which never dissipates. The kiss that they gave, the hug that they held, or the kind word that they passed on. And that ripple effect of that energy through the people they touched and the hearts they touched, that lives on forever in this lifetime. So you never really die. Your energy continues through the people that you touch and the hearts that you bless with your presence. And I always say to people, I say to them, look, looking how wonderful you are as a person, you know, and wonderful your family is as well. It shows that your dad or your mum left a legacy of love, a legacy of success, and a legacy of positivity on this planet. And that's all I want to do. I want to touch as many people's hearts as I possibly can out there, and try and help people to find the true love within and connect with their true self so that they can find true happiness within their lifetime and achieve whatever mission, and it's different for every single person in this lifetime, whatever mission in life that is for them.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Fire in the belly for you in 1 or 2 words, what would it be?
Your fire in the belly is to, as I said earlier, is to wake up in the morning, get out of bed, be grateful for everything you have, and just ready to take on your mission during the day, as if you're living your day as if it was your last day, every single day, with an absolute passion in your heart for what you're doing. And that's what you need. You need to find your passion in life and try and make some money out of it as well. But remember, adding value to other people. I mean, there's a guy on my radio show called John Mattoni. He wrote a book. He put it out there with the intention of maybe making some sales, getting on stage, everything like that. Didn't get anywhere. 10 years later, he relaunched the book. He changed the cover, changed the title, put it out there with the intention of just adding value to people. And he became a New York Times bestseller. So whatever you're doing in life, don't go run after the money. Don't go run after the success. Just run after how many people can I really add value to in this lifetime? How many people can I really help and inspire in this lifetime? And that's fire in the belly.
Awesome. Doug, tell us, how can people connect with you, track you down, hunt you down, follow you?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn, obviously. That's one of the best mediums to get me on. I do answer the LinkedIn, so it's just Doug Gordon, look under DNS Performance Optimization. And then on Facebook, I'm Doug D. Gordon. On Instagram, it's Doug D. Gordon. On Twitter, it's Doug D. Gordon. I have 3 websites. One's called Body, Health and Soul. That's for my healing and life coaching. I've got DougDGordon.com, which is for my speaking and for coaching, consulting. And then I have DS, there's no and in the middle because that doesn't work. So DS, Delta Sierra, performanceoptimization.com. And that's my company, dnsperformanceoptimization.com. And there we're doing corporate training, consulting, and coaching, and also keynotes and cap intro. But on top of that, it's not just me. I have a lot now of executive consultants who are working with me, who I offer and help as well. So if you're a consultant, you're looking to get more, because I've got so many contacts now because of everything I do, I'm helping other consultants get work as well. So they're my 3 websites, and they're the ways you can get in touch with me.
Doug, it's been awesome to have you on. Thank you for sharing so much and being so open, and yeah, bringing great value. So thank you.
A pleasure, Pete, and thank you to everybody that's listened. Thank you for your time, and I wish you all the very best, and I hope you all can connect with your own true self and find your own true mission in life.
Beautiful. Thank you.